ratchet axe out of car and lifts it above his head to hit the other kid on the ground and probably heal him. Principal takes axe out of kid's hand and knocks him with the butt end of the axe, basically saving the other kid's life. This happened in 1988 and that guy is still principal. He was in his early 30s back then. Two girls get into a fight in the cafeteria. Sheet goes down. Hair pulling. Kicking. Slapping. All of a sudden someone yells for an ambulance. Turns out during the fight one of the girls went into labor. I was suspended because a teacher thought my camera was a gong. Even after I proved to the principal and the police that it was just a camera, I was still suspended. Their reasoning is that they wanted to be perceived as being hard on gom threats. Which I'm all for except for the part where everyone knew it was not a gom. A dude just straight up getting head in class. Teacher was ducking oblivious. I went to high school in a very rural part of Pennsylvania. The seniors were allowed to drive to school and would get there early and hang out in the parking lot before homeroom. Well, one day a huge buck comes strutting into the parking lot. A couple of the redneck kids decide that they are going to hill it. So they get this deer cornered against the school, and I swear on all things holy this ducking deer jumps through a window and into a classroom. They don't let anyone in the school and call the cops and game wardens to get this thing out of there. Meanwhile it's bleeding everywhere because of the glass. So after about 45 minutes they finally get a hold of it and take it outside, where it runs as fast as it can towards the woods. However, there's the main road through town before you get to the woods. As it's crossing the street it gets hit by car. It was a bad day to be a deer. Young girl who was always in trouble took her duckling to school one day. Just walked around with it in her pocket. At some point she decided to take her shoes off. And was running around in and out of the classroom during class in just her socks. Sure enough, she slipped and fell. It practically exploded in her pocket. I can still remember her face and the screaming when she pulled a handful of mint duckling out of her pocket. It was as if the duckling's head had been degloved. Not really disturbing. But I watched a kid get tased my 7th grade year. He was a very obnoxious 8th grade kid. Stood on top of a table in the cafeteria one morning and started doing pelvic thrusts. One of the teachers who happened to be around walked over and told him to stop. He hit her and she proceeded to chase that bastard around until he dove under the table and got away from her. He ran straight into the school resource officer. He then proceeded to punch the SRO in the gut pretty hard and bolted for the cafeteria door. SRO followed in hot pursuit. I went out to the hall to see what happened, and when I turned the corner there the little ducker was on his ass after being tased. 10/10 would witness again. When I was in grade 3, we had an 8th grader beat up a kindergartner over a basketball. Police and an ambulance were called in and I saw the entire thing go down. To a 3rd grader, that sheet was intense. Not disturbing. But in 3rd or 2nd grade, my friend brought stink gums to school, the ones that inflate with pressure, and gave one to me and kept one for himself. Before school started we were playing on the playground, and just as I'm about to go line up I check my backpack and mine was inflated. I quickly throw that sheet as far away as I could. Some native kids ran over there and started stomping on it thinking it was funny. Before mine went off, I kicked my friend's backpack. Asshole move I know, his started inflating as well. He threw his as far out as well. Some more kids went over to stomp on his. Both blew up. And about 10-15 kids had to go home because they stunk so bad. My buddy and I got ice for a month. Someone wrote on the bathroom wall "duck this school. Gom on Thursday." Which naturally caused a big thing that obviously resulted in nothing. The next week one of my friends goes to the same bathroom with a Sharpie and writes "duck these muggles. Basilisk on Thursday," which all the students found hilarious. The faculty, less so. A dust devil swept through the playground and almost straight up took off a kid's cool jacket. He was kind of a jerk and I didn't like him. But I don't think he deserved to have his jacket yanked up into the sky. It had these neat racing stripes on them. Is this the 50s? I feel like this is the 50s. Our school had 3 giant cages to OK football in. They were essentially just tarmac areas closed over by metal bars and mesh. If the ball went over the top it could be difficult to get it back, so kids had cut through the mesh bars at places. I don't know how, it was pretty thick metal. Cut to the year 8 making a run down the wing. He's almost certainly gonna score. Nope. He trips and impales himself on some of the mesh that had been tore away. My friend in year 10 got his head busted open by someone for using a hack Magikarp in a battle. It was my idea. I've always felt bad. A girl in my grade, apparently purposely, OD'd on some pills in the second floor bathroom. It was during second period and for some reason the bathroom nearest to my class, where I usually went, was closed. So I walked a ways down the hall to the next closest one. I enter the bathroom and as I'm about to go into a stall I look to the floor and see someone lying on the floor of the handicapped stall across from me. I tried the stall door and it was locked. So I crawled under a bit and got a grip on this girl and dragged her out. Checked to see if she was breathing and from what I could tell she wasn't. I ran out into the hall and yelled to the nearest hall monitor, staff, I spotted, and told her to come quickly and radio for someone to call an ambulance. Within about a minute she and a few other people had gathered around and were trying to administer CPR. Not sure what happened after that. The lady I'd flagged down, notorious in our school for being a serious itch, started yelling at me while another staff member was asking me questions, saying that I was crowding the area and needed to leave. I never saw the girl again. But apparently she lived. Which is good. Also I saw my middle school principal get punched in the face. Kids being breathalyzed at multiple HS functions, and my sister saw a pig that was let loose in the school as part of senior prank have a heart attack and die. Edit. So I see breathalyzers are a school staple these days. Delightful. Most of the class drank vodka to celebrate during the last day of class before graduation. Teacher found out. Got big diggaz mad. Started screaming and hit 2 or 3 guys on the head with full force. We almost got expelled. Teacher got no reprimands whatsoever. My childhood crush in high school. Ducking another guy on the baseball field. Granted she wasn't my girlfriend and it was up to her. I cried and was pretty depressed after that. What base did he get to? He ran all the way home. In year 7 my woodwork teacher cut off his pinky and index finger demonstrating safety procedures to us. In our school we had these huge fences that were spiked at the top. A year 11 climbed to the top of them and everyone gathered round the bottom while he shouted about how great he was. Then the teacher came over and told him to head down, and as he was about to, he slipped and his ring got caught on one of the spikes. They were thin spikes. He fell down and survived the fall. But his ring had ripped off all the flesh from his finger and everyone could see it all hanging at the top of the fence. During gym a girl made a wrong move and landed in a bad way. I think it was on her neck, and then couldn't move her lower body anymore. Man, that was freaky. Ambulance came and she turned out fine in the end, but it's just disturbing to see somebody go paralyzed in front of your eyes. A kid tried to hang himself with a rubber hose by jumping off a 20-foot ledge in front of our gym in high school with it tied around his neck. My good friend tackled him as he was running to make the jump and then talked him out of it in front of a large group of students. Teachers gave him the rest of the day off and we went and smoked a deep. My first year of high school. There was this girl a little older than me. And in a higher grade. She was obviously depressed and suicidal. She walked around openly with cuts all across her chest and body. Deep cuts too. I remember her skin turning purple because of it. She was very lonely and didn't have that much friends. One day she tried killing herself in one of the school bathrooms. I can't remember correctly if she tried to OD on pills or bleed out, but someone found her pretty much unconscious and she was taken away. I haven't seen her since high school. But last time I heard of her she was doing much better. Started making friends and talking to people more and even added me on Facebook. I hope she continues to stay healthy. I witnessed a woman burst through the front doors of the school. Make a beeline for a 16-year-old and beat the shit out her in the locker bay. Slamming her head into a wall. Apparently the girl had insulted her pregnant daughter. Whoops. One of the math teachers at my middle school would hit on almost every girl in his class and would pull some girls aside and ask if they wanted after school tutoring. He got arrested a year or two ago for having sex with 12-13-year-olds and having naked pictures of them on his phone. So creepy, and he was a sheep math teacher who would rant about DARPA constantly. I saw a teacher, a coach and the school security officer trying to break up a fight between two girls. The teacher, a small guy who taught history, was helping hold the strongest of the two. When she screamed "duck you," and closed fist hit him in the face. Without pause, he hauled back and drilled her with a closed fist to the side of the head. Dropped her like the ton of bricks she was. Total silence for a good minute. Then she's back up calling him every name in the book, duck and crackapoo say. Hit a girl. I'ma sue the school. I'ma sue you. Nah. I'ma heal you. Cut yo duck and throat. Good times. He got in a little trouble. But fortunately not too much. He was one of our favorites. Two girls in the 9th grade mixed Vicodin and vodka. Both needed to be taken away by ambulance. Amateurs. We had a small wind turbine on our field for reusable energy for the school. And me and my friends always sat by the fence surrounding it. In the 2 years that we sat there, we witnessed a seagull get a broken wing, a seagull getting cut in half by the blades, and a pigeon getting cut in 3 by the blades. It was gross. One of the boys, who was a known troublemaker and also had some severe mental issues, slit his wrists during woodwork. He then proceeded to smear the blood all over the tables and on other students. He ended up being taken away by the police, never came back to school, and disappeared from social media sites, so hardly any of us knew where he ended up. A kid in your 16 years old, wolf whistled at a girl walking by the school with her boyfriend and her baby. The boyfriend jumped tower to high spiked fence and beat up the kid, and then jumped back over the fence and went on his way. The guy was probably in his late 20s. That guy who jumped the fence has some serious insecurities if a wolf whistle from some teenager on a schoolyard pissed him off that much. A girl got hit by a car on her way to school. She lived next door. The only road she had to cross was the entrance to the car park, and she managed to get sent flying through the air. My friend lived across the street from the school. Got hit by a car and flew probably 20 feet. And he got back up and tried to go back to school before they called him an ambulance. He was a tough dude. In September of my freshman year, a student who had failed to graduate the previous spring walked into the school cafeteria, where students all assembled prior to the first bell, with a rifle. He blew a hole in the trophy case. Glass went everywhere. And several hundred students stampeded for the exits. I was in the library, so missed most of this. A very brave and competent science teacher went room to room evacuating everyone. This was before Columbine, so we had no plan or training. The gunman walked down a hallway and took a classroom of students hostage. The principal, Dan Stockwell, walked into the room and traded himself for the students. He kept him occupied until an officer of the local police force could sneak up behind him from an adjoining classroom and disarmed the student. Amazingly, no one was injured. There are lots of heroes in the world. When I was in 3rd grade, our class had a substitute art teacher who suffered a stroke right at the beginning of class. I can remember him repeating the same sentence over and over. Then, when he was done, he sat at his desk and began to shudder violently. It all happened very fast and we were pretty freaked out. Luckily, our normal teacher was in the back of the room when it happened and was able to call 911 and get us out of the room. I never heard if he made out okay or not, but it was definitely one of the scariest things I've ever witnessed. Edit, since people seem confused. Our normal teacher usually came with us when we went to other classes like art, music, PE, etc. Also, I can't remember what he said. I can only assume it was related to an art project or something. My good friend found it funny that a man was smiling while covered in a blanket near the tennis courts. I think it was the second pair of bent legs that gave it away. AskReddit, it's a tennis court BJ guys.